The Kremlin also says that it remains interested in pursuing peace talks with Ukraine despite a large and deadly overnight Russian strike on Kyiv. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov says both sides continue attacks targeting military and military-related infrastructure, but Russia remains interested in achieving its goals through political and diplomatic means. Meanwhile, Ukraine also strikes Russian infrastructure, including civilian targets, as the conflict continues. Mr. Feingold, what exactly do you think will then be the position of Ukraine at this point in time? Because somewhere Ukraine will have to continue countering the Russian strikes.
Certainly, Ukraine wants to show that it still has the ability to fight. They need to demonstrate that not only to Russia, but to the European countries that have supported and continue to support Ukraine and support Ukraine specifically with military aid, now that the United States is no longer doing that. And of course, Ukraine needs to demonstrate that to the Trump administration as well. It's very important for Ukraine's negotiating position that they let the United States know that they're not going to give in easily either. But one thing we have to keep in mind here, at least from the United States perspective, is it's pretty clear that the United States position is that Ukraine has to accept that some of its territory is occupied by Russia. The position of the Trump administration at the moment is not to pressure Russia to withdraw from all the territory that Russia has occupied. And so all of this ultimately is posturing for where the two sides, with the involvement of the United States, are going to reach an agreement. But in the meantime, we're not there yet. And both sides continue to do what they think is necessary to put themselves in the best negotiating position. Unfortunately, that does result in civilian deaths and attacks on civilian infrastructure.
But Mr. Feingold, at the same time, where does this leave the negotiations as far as America is concerned? If America does end up convincing Ukraine, as you've pointed out, that they may have to give up parts of their territory in order to end this war with Russia, does that set a precedent for the years to come? And is that a dangerous precedent that's being set?
Well, one of the great struggles here is the United States could say to Ukraine that you have to accept that temporarily some of your territory is occupied, and Ukraine's going to say, oh, okay, we might accept that for an interim period, but just for how long? Keeping in mind that Ukraine has already been forced to accept that part of its territory in eastern Ukraine, as well as Crimea, have been occupied now for over 10 years. So you ask about a precedent and what it means for the long term. It's understandable that Ukraine is saying, wait a second, why should we agree to give up parts of our territory for an extended, open-ended period of time? But again, if there is to be a peace deal, that's probably where the United States is going to be putting pressure on Ukraine, which is to accept that some of its territory is going to be occupied for an open-ended period of time.
Absolutely. Ms. Feingold, thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast with your perspective. Moving on to